Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Here's our reactions to our predictions to the 2023-24 Premier League season. I'm joined once again by Dennis and Mark. Thanks again, lads, for joining. Let's get right into it and start with the bottom side, Sheffield United. So, as predicted, lads, obviously they got relegated. It's more of a case of whether they're actually going to finish, and in the end, they finished rock bottom. They conceded 104 goals, the most in Premier League history. Ended up with 16 points, not quite as bad as Derby with 11 points, or Sunderland with 15 points, but we finished joint third with joint point worst with Huddersfield, who also got 16 points. Not really a lot to shout about. Obviously, they're probably their best player was a lone player from January, Ben Brereton Diaz, who got 6 goals. Oli Burnley got 6 goals. Paul Heckingbottom was sacked. Chris Wilder couldn't really turn it around, but you know. They were hardly into nothing from the start of the season, with a very sort of thin squad and not very talented with Premier League quality, was it? So predictable that they end up finished bottom. Dennis?
Yeah, can't really add too much other than the generic jab of at what point do they sue West Ham?
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, at what point do they get the lawyers out and say that actually their draw against us should have meant that they got 20 points and comfortably finished 17th because of the global conspiracy against Sheffield United. And I'm really sorry to hear that Sean Bean didn't have another Hall of Fame meltdown, or and Neil Warnock didn't kick any bottles. It was all kind of pathetic and peaceful in the end, unlike Sheffield United, I have to say.
Mark?
Yeah, they just had an absolute mare, didn't they? Just uncompetitive. I think it's obviously always difficult for a new team coming up. Well, obviously they, bounce straight back up again, don't they, after relegation a couple of years prior. But it always baffles me when teams don't really invest properly. And obviously they had all the issues with the ownership and all that going rumbling away in the background. But if you're not going to invest, you're never ever going to have a chance of being competitive. I think they were lucky that they didn't get the break the record for the biggest defeat against Newcastle 8-0. I thought, after Newcastle winning 8-0, I actually thought that Newcastle just took their foot off the gas and probably took pity on them a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it must have been an absolute horrible experience, not just that game, but the whole season for Sheffield United fans. And whilst obviously clearly West Ham and Sheffield United are never ever going to get on together, my heart did start going out for him a little bit towards the end of the season, because that must just be horrific. I couldn't think of anything worse. Just turning up and watching your team getting mullered every week.
Yeah, no, pretty much, mate. And so prediction wise, we did pretty well. Me and Dennis, we got it bang on. Mark, you were 1 out before they finished 19th, so we did well with Sheffield United. Unlike Burnley, who finished 90th, we had a shocker, lads, with our predictions with Burnley. Dennis, what your thoughts on Burnley's season?
I really, really don't know what to say, frankly. There were times where it looked like right out of the 3 promoted sides, they're the one with the chance to stay up. At one point, it looked like they might pull it off with the points deductions, and when them and Luton both closed the gap down. But it's things where even when they got results, it wasn't what we were sort of expecting. They weren't the long ball, dice ball, but equally they weren't the expansive, company ball that the Munich fans are now predicting. It was just, they just sort of, for lack of a better term, sort of shithoused it. Like their draw again, when we were beating them, it was a case of, you needed Jose Mourinho and the Black and Decker to break down the wall. Eventually Kudus got 2 balls in there that unpicked their defence. And when they played us, they went 1-0 up and immediately started time wasting. How Trafford didn't get 5 yellow cards for time wasting that game is beyond me. But so those are the only 2 times, I'll be honest with you, I've watched Burnley play. I don't think I've watched Burnley play a 90 minutes of football other than when they played us. But based on what I saw, I don't have a clue why they were so hyped up, why I myself was believing it in. I think one caveat I had was if they're in a relegation battle, Uncle Pep will come help them out. He didn't really, did he? I don't actually think, I was expecting a flurry of Man City loans to max out their loans in January, but that didn't happen. They had I can't remember his name, but they signed a centre forward that did quite well for him. It'd be interesting to see where he ends up next year. Can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he scored against us, the first one against us.
Yeah, he was all known from Chelsea. Mark?
Yeah, Fofana, I think is the lad.
Yeah,
that's the lad. I know I just said about Sheffield United not spending any money. Burnley obviously spent a lot, and were large, young, competitive. You know, you look at, they obviously got better. I think they had a good spell, maybe around about 10, 15 games to go, where they seem to be picking up points. Obviously, partly because company changed from a single pivot, 4-3-3, to 4-2-3-1, to have a double pivot, double pivot. I've only had about 2 mouthfuls of my beer. That's worrying. You know, just too slow to react. I think really it was to anything. You know, changing it tactically and stuff like that. He let himself down there. But yeah, kind of like as Dennis said, there wasn't, on the rare occasions that I did watch them play, there wasn't anything that particularly impressed me. You know, they couldn't defend set pieces at all. Terrible, which is surprising for, you know, having someone like Company in there. And I think they went and got a specialist set piece coach as well, like, you know, before the season started. Yeah, just horrible, really, for the large parts. And I think that the gap, obviously, as Dennis alluded to, was only close because of the points deduction. You know, the other teams had.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, they only scored 41 goals as well. That's the third worst in the division. And they conceded the third worst in terms of goals conceded, 78 goals. A heck of a lot, in it. And every time I saw them match a day, like the highlights and the odd game I saw of them, they just made too many mistakes from the back with players that were simply not good enough. So, you know, definition of insanity, etc., etc. They only won 3 games before Christmas, so that was a big uphill task in the second half of the season. There was a stage near the end of the season where they only lost 1 out of 8 games, but in the end they just didn't get enough wins, and hence why they went down. So yeah, prediction-wise for Burnley, yeah, we all had a shocker, lads, didn't we? So Dennis, me and you thought they finished 14th, so we were 5 out. And Mark, sorry mate, you're even worse. You thought they'd finish 12th, so you were 7 out. So yeah, a few points added to our scores for this season. Obviously, the less points, the better, like golf. So okay, so move that one out of the way. So let's move up to the last relegation spot, which is Luton. Your thoughts, Mark, on Luton season?
Yeah, they did better than what I thought they were going to in terms of the final position. I know you're going to come onto that bit in a minute, but for general, you know, watching them this year, I felt they generally had a really good go against most teams. I wouldn't, you know, they never, you know, don't ever remember them getting smashed, you know, 5, 6, 7. You know, like we were just saying about Sheffield United. I think they've got a very good manager or coach, as they're now being referred to, in Rob Edwards. I thought I was impressed with Morris, the centre forward. Obviously, you know, and clearly all those players there were working for each other. They were buying into everything that was going on. Unfortunately, they just didn't quite have that quality that you need in the Premier League at, you know, at both ends of the pitch. And, you know, so they've ended up with 26 points there. Obviously, you know, would have been a bigger gap if Forest hadn't got their points deduction. But I think the thing, as I say, with them is that every week they did give it a go, and you know, you wouldn't look at their play. You know, saying about Sheffield United getting smashed, I think in some of those games Sheffield United players had given up the ghost, whereas I wouldn't say that about any of the games that Luton had. I felt they were good and they're very unlucky as well, actually, not to beat Liverpool in one of the earlier games that was on Sky, wasn't it? With the draw, on another day they would have won. Yeah,
for sure, mate. Yeah, I was looking at the amount of goals they scored, Luton. It was 52, which I didn't think it was that many. So that's a good amount. But it was the goals conceded, which really affected them. They conceded 85, which is obviously a heck of a lot. But it was a great effort, Mark, as you say, by Luton. But if they could have held on to a couple more leads, could have got some more points. As you mentioned, that Luton game that Liverpool game, last minute draw with Diaz scoring. Last minute defeat to Arsenal when Declan Rice scored in the last minute.
Yeah.
When they were 3-0 up away at Bournemouth and lost 4-3. So
yeah, you know, the Newcastle game.
Yeah, there's probably a few others as well.
4 up, yeah.
But you mentioned Colton Morris, yeah, he did great, 11 goals. Elijah Adebayo, 10 goals. They did very well up front. Ross Barkley, rolled back the years. What a season he had in midfield. Alfred Doughty contributed 8 assists from out wide on the left. So, yeah, and Rob Edwards did really well. Also got the maximum effort from a workman-like good group of players, really, I have to say. So to finish just shy of the drop zone was a really good effort. So, Dennis?
Luton fans by and large have known that this is like a one season thing pretty much, and anything else is a bonus. So their team carried them a little bit in a home game. Something that I suggested when we were doing the previews, they had a lot more home games coming because Kenilworth Road wasn't ready. And I personally think that's what put them a little bit above Burnley. Burnley had obviously the better playing quality, but Luton played better. And they signed a phenomenal goalkeeper in Kaminsky. It only speaks volumes to look how badly Blackburn Rovers did this year without him, with shaky goalkeeping for those following the championship. I would not be against Kaminsky coming in as our second, third choice goalkeeper at West Ham this season if we're looking for one, personally. But yeah, that's pretty much all I can add to what you guys said. The fact of how much I hate them shows that I'm actually saying good things about them this season. I think really says everything I can.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Okay, so predictions-wise, we actually did, well with Luton. So, Mark, you thought they finished bottom, so you were 2 out. And Dennis, me and you thought they'd be second from bottom, so we were 1 out. So we did decent with Luton. So let's move on to the rest of the bottom half. So Nottingham Forest, they finished 17th. An eventful season for Forest for all different reasons, with the club sacking Steve Cooper in December after a run of 1 win in 13. And in February, Mark Clattenburg was appointed as the club's referee analyst. A strange appointment, even thinking about it now. Obviously, he's left now. They were deducted 4 points for the breach of the Premier League's PSR rules, profit and sustainability rules, which we'll come on to later with Everton. But on the pitch, Chris Wood, he did great, 14 goals. Morgan Gibbs-White, excellent again, 5 goals, 10 assists. Anthony Elanga, 5 goals, 9 assists. So in the end, just enough, even with the 4 points deduction. So they stayed up once again, second season in a row. Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, I had made my comments beforehand. I was a little bit surprised that they appointed Nuno. I thought there were more logical options going out there, but he did enough to keep him up. They got a helping hand with a 3 points when we played him away from home and just rolled over for him. You're welcome. But yeah, as I said, this, if they had gone down, I was eyeing up Iwoni and Gibbs-White because I think they're both money. Elanga playing regular Premier League football, in my opinion, probably United could have done with him this year as an option. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But yeah, I think what Forest need to do moving forwards is streamline their team a little bit. And I'm going to make a random suggestion here. I know it's not really the thing of the show. I think it's the perfect club for if Moyes is going to get back into management. I think Forest to be the perfect club for him. However, will they have further economic sanctions next season? Who knows? And without that referee analysts, they're going to be complaining about VAR non-stop as well. But yeah, 17th place. I believe I called it at the beginning of the season as well.
Yeah, but that's if VAR is in place next season. Obviously, there's a vote going soon. So, Mark, your thoughts on Forest season?
I don't know. It's difficult. I'm trying to think of the right word. I just find the whole thing bizarre. I really do. I understand why they got rid of Cooper. Obviously, you mentioned there the 1 win in 11 games or whatever it was before Christmas. Especially as there was obviously talk about him, last season going at some point.
The owner coming out with statements.
Yeah, and which I find bizarre. And obviously the thing with Clattenburg, I understand, every club getting frustrated with VAR because I think with the possible exception of maybe, the big teams, I think every other team, so effectively the 14 other teams in the league, have all been affected. VAR goals sometimes justifiably being chalked off, and other times, wrong decisions or desperation, I think, to chalk goals off. But just bizarre. I think they've got some good players, and they've obviously had some good results. Beating Man United at home. Newcastle as well away on Boxing Day. 2 fantastic results for them that I'm sure will live long in the memory of the Forest supporters. But And again, you know, they've got some good players. Obviously, as Dennis just said, you know, Morgan Gibbs-White probably being the standout. And I think that, you know, he might be a player that moves on next year. But I think if Dennis just speculating there with Moyes, I don't think if I was a football manager, I don't think I'd go anywhere near Nottingham Forest.
Yeah,
the chairman is clearly says whatever comes into his head.
Do you remember? Sorry, Mark. To add to that, do you remember one? I think it might have been in the Liverpool home game. He was stood on the sideline.
Yeah, come down. But I mean, you can't. I mean, I get his frustration. I understand the decision ain't gone you, but I get it. I really do. We've probably all been there. But mate, you're the chairman of the football club. You've got to have a little bit of, you know, a little bit more about you and stuff like that. And you know, I can't remember what game it was now when obviously they put that tweet out after the full time, and yet they wanted to do it within minutes of the decision, you know, during the game. And it's just like, no, I'm sorry, you can't be doing things like that. I think there's just an embarrassment for the supporters and the players. I get that you're frustrated. Come out after the game and, you know, let the manager deal with it in the press conference. But for them to be tweeting stuff like that, man, it's just idiotic for me.
Mate, so much happened with Forest. I forgot about that tweet. That's how much has happened this season. So predictions. So we actually did well with Forest, all three of us. So I thought they finished 16th. So I was 1 out. Dennis, you got it bang on. So no points there. Nice one. And then Mark, you thought we'd get the last relegation spot, finish 18th. So you were 1 out as well. So we did well with the club from the Midlands. So not bad at all. So let's move on to Brentford, where we didn't do very well. Let's put it frank. His
name's Thomas, mate.
Hey. So yeah, thoughts, Dennis, on the Brentford season?
Who saw that coming? That's my first thing. Like, you know, they're always
not us, bro. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I'm having a massive minus points on this one. But like, I knew without Tony it'd be a bit difficult. But I didn't even think they really improved when he came back. Like, goals picked up a little. But when us in really bad form as we were in 24, with the exception of the Freiburg game and Leverkusen game at home, we scored 4 past Brentford without getting out of second gear, in my honest opinion. Like, that score, like the fact that we were nervous at 4-2 shows how we weren't exactly dominating them. It was just good positioning from Bowen and a thunderbolt from Emerson, really. And that's really, you know, what I can say, that, like, hopefully from a Brentford fan's point of view, this is a bit like, again, as much as I go back to what I know, like the comparison where Moyes had a bad season at Everton where they nearly got relegated or were near enough a relegation battle. And then for the next 4 or 5 years, we're back up finishing between 6th and 8th. You know, that's what I'll be hoping for a Brentford fan. But it looks like they're going to have to lose Tony. And as we've seen with quite a few other clubs, there's only so much you can do this sell a player, spread the cash, buy a few more players. Southampton, even to a lesser extent, like a not the fairest example to go. But Wigan used to do that. Used to stay up by the skin of their teeth, sell their best player that season, and then buy some bargains from Europe or South America.
Whilst leaving Emeweski up front. That was the major problem.
I think this was post-Esky. It's when they had Figueroa, who was a good centre forward up top. But, like, for example, that's maybe an unfair example for Brentford, but that's what it kind of feels like. They've gotten along with selling a star like a Watkins or a Ben Rama to reinvest that money, and eventually you run out of road. You know, so I'm hoping that's not the case for Brentford, because I like the way they've built up. I wouldn't be surprised if Thomas Frank leaves at the end of next season, though, for a different project. If it doesn't work, if he doesn't bounce back up the top 10, that's my only worry for Brentford long term. But yeah, who could have saw it coming?
Well, he might even leave this summer. You never know. Mark, your thoughts on Brentford season?
Yeah, I think, you know, disappointed with them. Really, they just never got going. I guess Tony not being over, was it 4 goals in 17 or whatever it was when he did eventually come back. You know, it's not a great record, really. You know, even giving him a little bit of, you know, consideration. He only played for, you know, half a season or whatever it was. Fact of the matter is that if you're relying on it was the Neil Mopay to play up front for you to lead the line, you ain't going to be winning too many football matches. He might work hard, but he's not that good in front of goal. And they just struggled, really did. And, you know, you never thought when you're watching them they were ever going to turn up and get smashed in a game. But likewise, you never really felt that they were going to go on and really win a game. You know, like what they've done in the previous years, especially at home, where they've, you know, had some pretty impressive results. I think they'll be looking at that season, and yeah, they'll be hoping next year that they improve big time, because that was pretty ordinary, really.
Yeah, for sure. It was a mixed campaign, wasn't it? But they initially didn't miss Ivan Toney, who was obviously suspended. But they had a worrying 5-match losing streak in December to put them in the relegation sort of scramble. But Johan Vissa did well, 12 goals. Brian Mbeumo, 9 goals. They did really well. But yeah, they did just enough to stay out, didn't they? So, you know, obviously they'll, as you boys have said, hopefully a bit better next season, and certainly better than our predictions, lads, because we all thought they finished 10th. So we all of us were 6 out with Brentford, so not a good prediction from us through there. We were a bit better with the next team, which was Everton in 15th. So Mark, your thoughts again, a bit like Forest, an eventful season for Everton, eh?
Yeah, certainly off the field. You know what he's done there. That chairman. Is nothing short of a disgrace. I know teams want to try and, you know, get into the, you know, Champions League or Europa League and all that sort of stuff. I get it, but you have got to have a little bit of nous about you know, spending money like it was water. You know, prior to obviously the last couple of seasons, but you know, with Deitch there at the helm, at the wheel, I should say. I always just felt that unless, you know, which clearly they've got 40 points without, you know, taking the you know, the deductions out of it. I was fairly confident that Everton were always going to stay up, because they wouldn't concede many goals. They'd always be in games, and that's exactly how their season went. They're obviously fortunate that Calvert-Lewin managed to stay fit for long enough to give them a bit more of a focal point at the top. I think that's something that they really struggled with, you know, season before last. You know, very workmanlike team, tough to break down, pretty much like Harry was at Burnley. You know, and obviously if they hadn't had those point deductions, suddenly they're almost sneaking into that sort of, you know, contention for the top half places, which I would assume before the start of the season from an Everton fan perspective, and if there were any objectives set, you know, within the club, that would have been way ahead of their expectations. And obviously, as we mentioned with Forest, it will be interesting next year, because there's talk with Everton, isn't there, as well, whether or not if they get another points deduction ahead of the season. So that will be interesting. I mean, I'm not sure how they can, if they start off the season on it's about 9 points, aren't they? I think so. If they're starting that far back, I would fear for them, massively fear for them.
Yeah, no, for certain. Still uncertain times for Everton fans. And yeah, as I said, like Forest, an eventful season, certainly off the pitch for Everton. They only scored 40 goals, but their XG for was ridiculous for Everton. They should have scored a lot more goals. But Crucially, as you mentioned, Mark, only conceded 51 goals, the 4th best in the entire division, which is some effort.
Wow.
Would have finished even higher, as you said, Mark. Probably, I think as high as 11th if you went for the 8-point PSR deductions. And obviously, there's still problems with the ownership, like with 777. Don't have the money, and so there's still a bit of uncertainty, obviously, for Everton. But an excellent performance against Liverpool stopped the Merseyside rivals. Stopped their title challenge. Obviously, kept obviously secured Everton's safety. But a number of standout players, Tarkowski and Branthwaite, were excellent at centre back. Decore was consistent as always in midfield. Dwight McNeil, 6 assists from out wide. Jordan Pickford taking his England form to Everton, finished second in the Golden Glove standings with 13 clean sheets. And yeah, and as you mentioned, Mark, Sean Dyche, great job, especially when he wore his tracksuit for the last few games. Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, without their points deduction, I think it would have been 12th on goal difference, splitting Brighton and Bournemouth. But yeah, the prediction I made, which was like Dyche's tactical nous and their defensive work will probably keep them just above the likes of Forest and Wolves, Luton, and Sheffield United. Well, without the points deduction, he'd have done all of that. He would have, like I said, finished above much more favoured teams like Brentford, who we saw beforehand. So it's a real testament to Dyche's managerial ability, in my opinion. And if they do get another points deduction, I'd still back them to stay up.
Would you? What? Even if it was not, even if they started off with say -9,
they went. If they took a minus, if they took a -9 this season on top of what they already had, they would still stay up. So that would have been that would have combined something 16, 17 points deduction. They would have still stayed up.
But don't forget those points. Obviously, that came during the season. I'm talking about if they start the season, which is what I think the Premier League are trying to do. That's a tough ask. -9.
Yeah. It does, but I think in theory, I think it would have is a -7 or a -8 they took this year. So if they started it or got it mid-season, it's still deducted the points. And I'll still back them to stay up even with a -9. It may be by the skin of their teeth on the last day, and another Decore like sledgehammer from the edge of the area, but I'll still back a Sean Dyche Everton side to stay up next season. It's going to be like, what survives a nuclear war, the cockroaches and a Sean Dyche football team.
No, for sure. Right. So yeah, predictions wise, I mean, thank God for the points deduction actually, because we actually ended up doing actually quite well with Everton. So Mark and Dennis, you thought they'd finish 16th, so you were 1 out. I thought they finished 17th, so I was 2 out. So in the end, thank God for PSR, when actually didn't get too many points. A bit different with the next team. So Wolves finished 14th. Dennis, your thoughts on the Wolves this season?
I thought it weren't for the VAR decisions, they'd probably similar to the points deductions with Everton. If they got correct VAR decisions, they finish above us, in my honest opinion. I remember beginning of the season, it was quite ridiculous. There was that Fulham game that they should have won by a country mile. Even games where it doesn't really matter because we'd won 3-0, but when we played them at the London Stadium, they had a perfectly good goal disallowed at 2-0. Yeah. And at 2-0, making it 2-1, they could have had a sniff of a draw. I think Gary O'Neill's done a wonderful job there. Don't worried about getting ahead of yourself when an English manager has a good season, especially in their first full season in charge. But because some West Ham fans wanted him as our manager, I think it's a bit too much too young. But it'd be interesting to see what happens. I mean, if it sounds like they're going to have to sell to buy again, which a few teams might manage to take advantage of. So I'm not too confident on their long-term future. But for me, they were, in my opinion, they were the second most surprising team of the season.
Yeah, no, wouldn't disagree with that, mate. I seemed to be a bit of chaos when obviously Julian Lopetegui left days before the season started. But yeah, as you mentioned, Dennis, I mean, Gary O'Neill did a fine job. The second successive season, really. Also, he did a great job at Bournemouth the previous season as well, keeping them up comfortably. Hwang Chang, Mateus Cunha got 12 goals each. They were vital, as well as Pedro Neto. I mean, he had his injury problems, but he still ended up with 9 assists. So them 3 players were the heroes for Wolves this season. Mark?
Yeah, I can't really add much more than what you two boys have said, really, to be fair. I'm really, pleased for, obviously, I guess, because of the West Ham connection, O'Neill doing a really good job. I liked how he approached the games. I think that going back to the Man City game they had at home in particular, great, fantastic day for them. Obviously tailed off a little bit towards the end of the season, which, once you sort of really realistically know that you're probably safe, results do sort of go a little bit haywire, don't they? But his reputation's growing all the time. I think he'd be wise to probably stay at Wolves for another year unless he gets a crazy job offer. One of the big boys comes in for him. But yeah, it'll be interesting what happens there in the summer because I don't feel that they're a team clearly that they've got a few older players. Dawson in there. They clearly need to have a bit of a a switch up to an extent. But I think they're obviously going to have to be selling to buy. I think, which is a bit of a shame from their point of view. But yeah, they've got some good players. The 2 lads you've just mentioned there, Bill, they've had great seasons. Kilman at the back, as well. And I think they'll be pretty happy. I think in the end with how their season's gone overall.
Yeah, but they were in line for the top 10 for a few weeks, and then, as you say, Martin, they tailed off. So yeah, Wolves threw us a little bit predictions wise. So Dennis, me and you thought they'd get relegated, finish 18th. For Mark, you didn't think they'd do much better. You thought they'd finish 17th. So me and Dennis were 4 out. Mark, you were 3 out. So yeah, a few points for all of us for Wolves there. Let's go up to 13th, which end up with Fulham finishing there. Dennis, your thoughts on the West London team's season?
I thought, like again, Fulham stayed up. They did a little bit better than I thought they were going to do, but they were just they filled the role that Crystal Palace normally occupy, which is they exist, they stay up, they do well against a big team here and there, and they beat West Ham. So there we are. 7-0 aggregate saw against West Ham. Again, but it was such a okay, it's happened season. But yeah, that's my view on Fulham. Nothing against them, nothing much for them. They exist. We'll see them. We'll see them next season, and hopefully do a little bit better.
Yeah, but back to the studio. Mark, you got any more to add to that riveting analysis there?
I didn't even mention the clown as well. I haven't even mentioned the clown for Fulham. So I'll leave that to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, they were there, weren't they? I mean, they didn't. Again, they had a couple of decent results along the way. I think Pereira was had a decent season. I think he may be finally starting to show what the hype was about when he first went to Man United, but I think he's still a long way from being a top quality player. But he's certainly one that you might, decent for a mid-table-ish team that Fulham are. I like the centre half. Looks like he's going to Chelsea now, doesn't he? Tosin. I probably pronounced that wrong. How do you say his name?
Bang on.
But just up and down. Really, not anything really to write home about. And what I will say as well, again, I know this is a big thing in general in football. It's not just Fulham, but obviously I'm sure we've all seen the ticket prices for some of the areas in the ground that Fulham are charging, and I think that's absolute scandalous.
Yeah,
irrespective, by the way, that there's cost of living crisis, that's scandalous at any time.
Yeah.
And that really does need to be looked into, as I think that's to say utter disgrace.
Yeah, no, completely.
Just for that, they should be relegated, really, in my view. But
should be deducted points for that. Screw PSR. I can't really add too much more, lads. But a bit of a safety first solid season for Fulham. They actually did quite well because obviously they lost their talisman in Mitrovic. So before the season, had some great wins, including 2-1 at home to Arsenal and 2-1 away at Man United in the last minute. And out of nowhere, Rodrigo Muniz I don't think he could get on the bench at Middlesbrough, wherever he was last season. He ended up with this top score of 9 goals. So fair play to him. Raul Jimenez, obviously not quite his Wolves form, but he still chipped in with seven goals, a decent return. João Paulinho, what another excellent season for the midfielder. So wouldn't be surprised if he's linked with another move this summer. Also, he was linked heavily with Bayern Munich season just gone. So predictions wise, we did good with Fulham. So Dennis, you were 2 out. You thought they'd finish 15th. Mark, you were 1 out. You thought they'd finish 14th, and I was also 1 out. I thought they'd finish 12th. So we did pretty well with Fulham, and the same with this next team actually as well. Maybe not after the first few games. Bournemouth, who finished 12th. Had a really poor start. They didn't win to their 10th game, but Andoni Iraola, his high intensity football really clicked into gear. And they ended up having a great season, really, to be fair to them. They won 6 out of 7 games in November, December, shot them up the table. Mark, your best mate, Dominic Solanke, had an unbelievable season with 19 goals. And as a club, Bournemouth, it's their joint second best Premier League position, but their highest number of points in the Premier League season, which is now 48. So an unbelievable season for Iraola. Obviously, Gary Neal was seen as harshly sacked, but I mean, the owners and director of football, whoever it is, small director, deserve a lot of credit because it's been an amazing appointment with still not an amazing squad, I would say. So he's done fantastically well to get them to a 12th position, and they had an outside chance of finishing the European places at one stage. So a really, really good effort from Bournemouth this season, Mark.
As you've just kindly reminded everybody of my thoughts on Solanke, I've got a massive humble pie there. I mean, he's had an incredible season, hasn't he? Fair play to him. Just always seems to score no matter what. Obviously potential for getting into the England's set up as well for him. So he's had a fantastic season. The two other players, remember we mentioned, we certainly mentioned one of them, Justin Cliver, obviously coming in the summer. Clearly, he's had a blinding, football, not blinding, but he certainly had a very impressive first season there with the 7 goals that he's got. I guess the next challenge for him now next year will be double figures if he can do that. And the other fella, I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name, so I won't try and pronounce it. But the other forward and Antonio, I'm not even going to try it, but he got 8 goals anyway. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a little bit sceptical of this, Biazi, football market that they were going to play under the new manager. I was a little bit, seeing how it evaporated when he was at Leeds, how that would work under the new manager. But, Bournemouth are one of those teams actually that you especially when they were on Mattelli and that, you thought, do you know what, I quite fancy watching them because you generally didn't know what was going to happen. And obviously as a neutral, that's absolutely blinding really for me. It's, they've had a good season and they'll be very happy with that. And I think they've effectively changed the whole culture of the football club. Due respect under O'Neill and Scott Parker is probably a little bit, low block, almost safety first football. But he's come in and he's obviously gone back, really to how, Eddie Howe was playing when they had all that initial success in the Premier League. Fair play to him. Yeah,
really good points, mate. Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, stole what I wanted to start off with. Well, Dominic Solanke, how about that? I always thought, again, because you can go with the WhatsApp messages when we were linked with him last summer and other members of the group, not just Mark, were a bit like, I don't know. I'm like, I've always thought Solanke was money. I just think he needed to not play for Liverpool or Chelsea, where if he didn't score, he didn't start effectively, somewhere just to go get experience. And he came back for the Championship, twice a player, really, in my opinion. But yeah, no, there's nothing really more to add. Yeah, it took a while of embedding in the style of play. Be interested to see how second season syndrome kicks in with that, which often happens. And if they do lose Solanke for big money, are they going to reinvest? Are they going to go for cheaper European options, which there's going to be a lot out there that fit the style of play they're playing. So future might be looking pretty decent for Bournemouth. However, with their stadium size, consistent success in European qualification is probably a little bit out of their reach within realistic seasons. But I think they've laid good foundations this year.
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah, predictions-wise, we did good with Bournemouth. So Mark, me and you, we thought they'd finish 15th, so we were 3 out. Dennis, you thought they'd finish 13th, so you're 1 out. So good effort from the 3 of us. So let's move on to Brighton, who finished 11th. So Mark, your thoughts on how the Seagulls did this season?
Yeah, a bit disappointed, I think, if I'm honest with you. I think they obviously struggled a little bit with the, playing on a Thursday and then obviously on a Sunday. We've had some bad results in those European games early doors, and then obviously brought it back, and then unfortunately for them got absolutely smashed in the knockout stage. And I think that unfortunately reflected in their league form, just inconsistent for the whole season. Obviously he's left now, but clearly the manager was frustrated with how things were going. I still think he's a brilliant manager. I love how he tries to get his teams to play. But yeah, inconsistent. You look at it: 12 wins, 12 draws, 14 defeats. Finishing when I finish 11th just sums it up, doesn't it? Really. Some good individual performances. Dennis's mate Pedro from Watford, but I'm disappointed they didn't give Evan Ferguson more opportunities this year. Always been impressed whenever I've seen him play, but 6 goals in 27 appearances. I'm not sure what the split was there between starts and substitute appearances and all that, but yeah, would have, for someone with his potential, I'd have expected him to have been a bigger part of it. And I think as well, probably missing McAllister in the middle of midfield and Casido as well. That's a tough ask, and obviously, as Dennis touched on before, there's only so many times that you can go to the world to keep buying, unknown players for for minimal money. It's great you can sell them on for big money, but the next player coming in, he might not. He might be the profile, but that's a different, the style of player that you want. But he might not necessarily be as good as who you're getting rid of. And I think that Brighton might do him a favour not being in Europe next year. But yeah, I think they'll be hugely disappointed with that after how well they did last year.
Yeah, it's a big summer for Brighton this summer. Dennis, your thoughts on their season?
I'm gonna say something that's probably going to get me cooked if any Brighton fans watch this, but I've never understood why people think De Zerbi's this great manager. I think he inherited a very good style. He fits the style they had spent years building with the transfer analysis and the director of football a lot for Graham Potter. But we also, I think at one point he knew he was going, or he was told that the funds weren't going to be there for next year, or we're going to have to sell another star to fund this. And that's probably why he's left. I think it's going to be, similar to someone like an AVB or even, sound a bit disrespectful, Di Matteo, where he will end up at another big club, but will just not live up to the expectation that he's built at Brighton. Last year they were much better. And because Caicedo struggled a bit at his new club, maybe it wasn't all down to him. Maybe there's an element of belief, but Brighton just totally ran out of steam. They had a decent start. We finally beat them away from home.
Yeah.
And they did. They had a very good account of themselves in Europe in their first ever European journey. Came up against some big sides. Went out. I think they went out to Roma. Am I correct? Roma. So absolutely no flies on them for the way they went out. However, yeah, like Mark said, you've got to feel a bit disappointing. I think there was some massive overhype of De Zerbi at the beginning of this season that then is panned out to be virtually what you would expect from Graham Potter on similar level. I think they're very similar level managers. I don't see De Zerbi as being like the next Guardiola, as some people are saying, is the point I'm making. Hopefully that for their sake they can not lose any more stars, because I don't know, they're not going to get the mega bucks that they got for Caicedo, but maybe they didn't spend all of that and they can live off that for another year. And I do agree that Evan Ferguson should be getting a lot more game time. I don't see him staying at Brighton much longer personally.
Yeah, so as you said there, Dennis, yeah, decent start to the season. Had Brighton dreamed of Europe again, but yeah, as you said, Mark, disappointing. One winning 10 games at the end of the season, meant they're finishing the bottom half, and even worse with their arch rivals Palace above them as well. Obviously, with De Zerbi leaving the club, I think the injuries down their left side don't think help them, with Estepinian and Mitoma having a lot of injuries, so that didn't really help them. But yeah, as you boys have said, João Pedro, good signing, 9 goals. I think he'll probably should get at least double figures next season, second season at the club. So yeah, I mean, all of us prediction-wise, we all actually did okay. Actually, with Brighton, we all had them as 9th, and obviously finished 11th. So all of us are 2 out. So not actually too bad with Brighton. So let's move into the top 10. So obviously it was Crystal Palace. So Mark, your thoughts on the Seagull? On the Eagles, rather.
It's similar as a bird. We'll let you off.
Yeah.
I mean, the transformation that they've had. First and foremost, I should say, really, obviously, such a shame with Roy Hodgson. What happened with him at the end of the season? Last 15 games, whatever it was to go. And hope that obviously he's making a good recovery and all of that. Obviously, was surprised, to be honest, after saving them last season, that he stayed on to do the start of this season. To be fair, I thought he would have gone anyway. But I think clearly Crystal Palace needed it, because the transformation in everything, from the way that they played, 1 and 2 touch football, trying to get on the front foot. I can remember Aston Villa last year when Emery came in to replace Gerrard, and the transformation in that team. But I'm struggling to remember too many other teams that maybe have had a similar level of transformation in such a short space of time. And for a Crystal Palace fan, it must be really exciting now going to the games and thinking, wow, opposition might score 2, but we've got the firepower. and some, really good players there that can actually go and hurt teams ourselves. You look at Eze, 11 goals in 27 games, fantastic return. Elise as well. I'm just written down here, 16 goal assists in just 19 appearances. I mean, if they could keep him fit, I mean, they're going to be laughing next year. They really are, whether or not, assuming that, I think that's what might save him, his injury record, that he might not go this season. In the summer. But yeah, that's something that they want to, hope that he improves on. And obviously, Dennis's mate. I'll leave you, Dennis, probably to talk about him.
My boy.
What a centre forward! What a signing!
Yeah, I completely agree, Mark. A real transformation on and off the pitch with Glasner's appointment. I mean, Roy Hodgson. I mean, one of his last games was they lost to Brighton 4-1, and there was discontent with the players and the fans at the end of the game. Obviously, Roy Hodgson, best wishes to him. Obviously, he leaves due to ill health. Might have got sacked anyway, but yeah, Glasner, what a transformation! He won 7 out of 13 games. Completely changed the style of play as well. And then finished in the top 10 for only the second time in the Premier League era. Yeah, Jean-Philippe Mateta, man reborn, 16 goals. What an effort. Eze, as you mentioned, Mark, and Elise. Elise scored 10 goals. He only played 19 games. 10 in 19. Unbelievable effort.
If he was, sorry, Bill, to interrupt, if he was playing for I don't know, a Liverpool or a Tottenham or something like that, people would be raving about those stats a hell of a lot more than probably what they're giving him credit for.
I didn't realise it was that much, mate.
No, nor did I. So I looked, to be fair, but incredible.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, what a turnaround for Palace, Dennis.
Yeah, well, thank you for leaving the floor open for me to talk about Jean-Philippe Mateta. I have been bigging up.
That's the end of the podcast.
I have been bigging up for years, when he was at Mainz. And funny little stat nugget for you, where he was one of our backup options if we didn't get Sebastian Haller in 2019. Would have been interesting to see how that worked out. But now he's got a manager that knows how to play him, because obviously the manager, Glasner, used to manage Frankfurt, actually was managing the Frankfurt side that knocked us out of Europe in 22. Playing him in his proper position down the middle, rather than seeing him as a target man, has brought the best out of him and has brought the best out of the wingers around him. I think that if this manager at the beginning of the season, no disrespect to Roy Hodgson, and a fit Alessi and Eze, I think we're talking about them in Europe next year. I reckon they would have definitely got Europe, considering how a lot of clubs were falling over each other in the chase for Europe. I reckon they probably finish 6th or 7th. With Hodgson, I personally think he should have gone after keeping them up. I thought it was only ever going to be more the same, because he left under very similar circumstances, just nowhere near as bitter, because they weren't ever relegation threatened, but it was a bit of, okay, finishing 14th to 12th is good, considering the scare they had under Ronald de Boer. But, after a while, you're just like, no, we want someone else. And Vieira wasn't exactly the right fit. I think they've got a manager that's the right fit. And they're already in the market. I think it's Kamada, who played under Glasner at Frankfurt, is due to sign for them.
Oh, what a player he'd be.
Very interested to see what they do next year. There'll be a team to watch for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, mate. Right, so yeah, predictions. Yeah, we do good with Palace, actually. So Mark, me and you thought finished 13th, so we were 3 out. Dennis, you thought they finished 12th, so you were 2 out. So yeah, we did decent with Crystal Palace. Let's move on to our team, West Ham. We finished 9th. Thoughts, Dennis, on West Ham season?
We all had them as 11th because we thought, all right, we hadn't had the most we weren't so optimistic, because I think we hadn't, other than Areola, I don't believe we had signed anyone officially when we made the video.
Yeah, linked with the host of players, but yeah, I didn't sign too many.
Alvarez was like virtually done, but at that point we still didn't have any signings. It was a bit like, okay. And I said, I think it will be a bit of a slow start, but we'll end up climbing up the league. We had the opposite. It was a lightning start. We were top of the league after game week 3 and 4, Brighton and Luton away. I remember doing an Instagram boomerang in Mainz when I was over there after we beat Luton, declaring that we were going to win the league. Well, a bit didn't quite work out, but you know.
You meant the top of the Europa League, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The groups, yeah.
But no, I mean, as I said, the second half of the season, non-West Ham fans will go, "Oh, what are you on about?" But we were relegation form. I think we'd won 3 games in all competitions at one point, and we only turned up. I think the only games we turned up for were Everton away, the 2 Europa home league games, and sorry, for Liverpool at home. Now, even Luton, I think we were playing in second gear most of the game, especially after we went ahead and they had nothing left. We were just knocking it about. I think the only games where we played with the intensity we did in the first half of the year were those 4 examples I gave you. We got some great shithouse performances over the season. I love a last-minute winner in a game we don't really deserve to win, but yeah, it was right of Moyes to go. As I said before, I think a good, despite what the feedback you gave, Mark, I still think a club like Forest, even with the nutty owner, that'd be the type of that's the type of project you want a David Moyes to come in and sort out over a 2-3 year period. Bear in mind, he did have to deal with peak David Sullivan at the beginning and during lockdown. Admittedly, he didn't ever come down onto the pitch, probably because he'd get lost on the way down London Stadium because there's so many steps.
Well, I wouldn't see him.
Well, bit rich coming from you and me making that comment, but yeah, like I said, I think I'm not horrific as heartbroken over the Lopetegui appointment as some West Ham fans are, but overall, it's a very West Ham season, and we'd have bitten your arm off the 9th a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, bang on, mate. Mark?
I think the actual finishing position, as Dennis is saying, if you'd offered any West Ham fan that before the start of the season, 9th, they would have said yes. But I think it's the way that we've got there that is probably the issue. You know, winning 4 games in 2024 is shocking in anybody's form book. And I think that's one of the things that I think that pundits and other fans of other clubs seem to be missing the point of. You know, when they're talking about West Ham fans just moaning. You know, awful second half of the season. Yeah, it makes you wonder about this whole thing with the contract situation with Moyes. Was there one offered? What, you know, a bit like Sam Allardyce a few years ago. You think we were Champions League spots at Christmas. We got told we weren't having a contract renewed, and then before we knew it, we'd slid down the table. I think we'd finished, you know, 10th or 11th or whatever, you know, similar sort of situation. Yeah, I mean, the only bright spark really was Bowen and Kudus. I thought he had a very good you know, debut season, and he's going to be a top player. You can tell that. Luckily, we've still got that release clause in his contract, so at least we might get one more season out of him. I thought Alvarez was a good signing. It's a shame how that relationship seems to have soured with Moyes at the end of the season there. You know, Moyes digging him out, you know, effectively with, you know, taking him off at half-time against Chelsea and making those comments about Declan Rice. But yeah, just an odd season. We clearly probably haven't got enough time to go into all the ins and outs of it, but we clearly need some big investment in a lot of positions in the summer. Need a centre forward who can stay fit for more than 15, 20 games like Antonio. Yeah, just in the end, and I think it's the right decision to let him go. I like Moyes. I didn't want him to go the first time because knowing that he could build a project. You know, and I was pleased when he came back the second time. He did what he was meant to do, and I think it's fair to say that, you know, the 3 seasons or 4 seasons that he's had in charge, but certainly 3 of those seasons are 3 of the best seasons that West Ham fans have ever had. Maybe under Redknapp a couple of times in the late 90s, early 2000s, where it was, you know, league finishes were pretty good. But, you know, I don't agree with the stick and the abuse that he has been getting on social media. I think that some of the fans have gone way over the top. Criticise his style of play at times, I can understand that, but some of the other stuff that's being said at him, totally wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree, Mark. The stick is farcical, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's the end of the David Moyes era, resulted in another top half finish. Scored a good number of goals, West Ham, with 60, but shipped 74, the fourth worst. Only the relegated sides conceded more. So, there we go. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Mark, Jarrod Bowen, excellent season, 16 goals, 6 assists. Obviously, Mohamed Kudus, 8 goals, 6 assists. James Ward-Prowse did well for his first season, 7 goals, 7 assists. I thought Alphonse Areola had a fine season, considering he had such a leaky defence in front of him. Dread to think how many goals we would consider if he didn't have a good season. We had some memorable results. We mentioned a few, beating Tottenham, Arsenal and Brighton away. Were really good standout results. But yeah, so ninth place for our club. So yeah, predictions-wise, we all thought they'd finish 11th. So we were 2 out. So in the end, not too bad for West Ham. So we're a long way out for this next team. We finished 8th, which is Manchester United. It's unbelievable that Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in world football, finished a league season with negative goal difference. That sums up how such a bad season they had. Injuries didn't help them, of course, but still they were far too easy to play against. No real identity on the ball, and hence why Erik ten Hag might well get the sack later this summer, obviously with the added investment from Sir Jim Radcliffe, obviously. But despite an alarming lack of service, Rasmus Højlund, he still ended up with 10 goals, and I think he'll definitely improve. Colin Mainoo was a shining light in midfield. Scott McTominay popped up with some crucial goals as well, considering he was surplus to requirements last summer. So, a really poor season, and end up with an FA Cup win. So they'll be in Europe, Europa League next season. But whether Ten Hag will actually manage them, we'll wait and see. But really, really poor season from a Man United point of view. Mark?
Yeah, I agree with you. Someone obviously grew up in the 90s, watching Man United win everything left, right, and centre, and setting the standard for everybody else. How it's gone over the last sort of 10 years or so is, I can only imagine what Manchester United fans must be thinking, really. It's awful. They've almost just turned into another club. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're just there, really. They don't do anything. As you said, Højlund's had a pretty decent season there with the 10 goals. Clearly something going wrong with Rashford. Recruitment, terrible. Anthony, we're spending him 80 million or whatever it was, and he's got 1 goal last year. Could forgive him if it was his first season, but that's his second season. That's just not good enough. Too many problems off the pitch with certain players. Just a mess. The manager doesn't know his best team. I know he's been maybe a little bit unfortunate with injuries. The FA Cup was clearly papered over a lot of cracks. I think if I was I know I'm all for trying to give managers time and an opportunity to build something, but when I watch Man United play, I don't ever feel that I know what their style of play is. Are they meant to be a low block? Are they meant to be a high block? They don't seem to do, a high press, not high block, high press. They don't seem to do anything. And I struggle to understand what they're meant to be doing, which for 2 years in a job is bizarre, irrespective of, how many injuries you've had with your players. But I think he's probably got to go. I really do. I think they need to get rid of him and sell a lot of the players and start it all again, and give whoever that is a real opportunity and backing to build something, worthwhile. But they'll be massively disappointed with that season. That's poor. That's really poor for Man United.
Yeah, how many times have we said that, Mark, since 2013? Get sacked the magic, get new players in. Well, how many times have we heard that? Dennis?
Yeah, obviously, with United, it really depends on which fan you talk to, what their opinion is of the season. I know as many the United fans I know as many that are very much back the manager, and some of these rumours of Gareth Southgate are, and this is not my opinion, apparently they're out there to make United fans appreciate Ten Hag a bit more because they really don't want Southgate. I don't know how much water that holds, but that's an opinion I've been given. When it comes to Man United, it's a little bit, I think what is symptomatic, I think, of Manchester United at the minute is Marcus Rashford, who is a fantastic footballer, but is clearly not having the best time. And there's videos of him getting into arguments with Man United fans on the sidelines, warming up. And I think that kind of sums up the absolute mess that is the Man United squad. I think when Jose Mourinho many years ago said second place of Man United was his biggest achievement in football, people laughed, and then they go, oh no, that team was really bad, but they're doing better now. And now we're back to that time where I'd argue this is worse than under Mourinho. Yeah, they had injuries. I think they had 15 different defensive partnerships, but those players are still, on paper, fantastic players and miles above some of the players that they finished below. I don't really know. I think their transfer policy is still as erratic as it was under Woodward, but they can't blame Woodward anymore. So who are they going to blame now? And quite frankly, it's hilarious that despite all of that, they still got Europe by beating Man City in the final by copying Sam Allardyce's tactic against Spurs away in 2013 of playing without a striker and absolutely confusing them. It was a bit like I think how I explained the tactics Man United were using to someone that doesn't watch football is it's a bit like Super Hands in Peep Show when he goes, why are there washing machines in the pub? No one knows. It will freak them out. Why are Man United not playing with a striker? It will freak them out. And that's pretty much the only thing I could say about Man. Much like I say about Man United without going into ball, if I'm honest. So
I didn't think in this video we'd hear about super hands and washing machines. Anyway, so we were in a spin with our predictions for Man United. Mark, me and you, we thought they finished third. Match the previous season, and Dennis, you thought they finished fourth. So we were a long way off with Man United. So thanks, lads. So let's go up to seventh, which is Newcastle. Mark, your thoughts on the Geordie season?
Yeah, a bit funny, a bit strange, really. I know they had a lot of injuries, didn't they? And, a lot of inconsistent performances, but also as well some really good results. Sheffield United one, obviously, we mentioned earlier. But I was pleased. It was quite refreshing, actually, to see a club stick with a manager. I know I've just said about sacking Ten Hag, because I'm sort of, making myself look probably a little bit stupid here, but they actually gave him a bit of time to try and turn it around, Eddie Howe. And clearly he didn't. And I think it's fair to say that the players absolutely love playing for him. I mean, you look at the transformation in someone like Anthony Gordon, how he's taken his game on to another level. I did worry about him actually at the start of the season because I thought, once they signed Harvey Barnes, I thought, wow, you're not going to play much this year, mate, because Harvey Barnes is going to play, obviously, unfortunately, with injuries, but he looked good when he did eventually come back. Isaac up front, fantastic, 21 goals in 30 games. Mate, they've got so many good players. People say, maybe made a couple of mistakes, but Trippier still ended up with 10 assists from right back. Injuries was obviously the killer for them. And obviously the old Italian Tonelli or whatever his name is, with the betting, the Tonali, yeah, that one as well. That one getting with the betting stuff. Obviously, we potentially got a potential situation with Paqueta at West Ham. I think again that was obviously a big blow for them. Not a bad season. Obviously, Champions League was a huge disappointment. I think that's fair to say. Seventh for a team that's still trying to develop into breaking into the Champions League regularly. I think if they'd finished seventh last year and fourth this year, probably would have been maybe slightly better on the old time frame in terms of what they probably want to try to achieve. Obviously, they're going to try and go big again, I guess, in the summer with trying to bring in new players. But it'll be interesting if they can keep the likes of Bruno, Gordon, and Isaac next year, because I think that the bigger boys will be circulating around them, and it'll be interesting if they can hang on. But I think generally they've got the foundations there now to really kick on, in the next couple of seasons. And Newcastle fans, we know how, what was it, since 1969, I think it was the Intercity Fairs Cup, I think was the last major trophy that they won.
Like
it's going to happen at some point in the next few years, and it would be great, I think, for the English game, if an English manager was actually at the helm achieving that.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And there'll be even key players like Almiron might have to go, but he's been vital for Newcastle last couple of years. Dennis.
Yeah, I mean they've had injuries. They're still like it's basically for a second season because I think they massively achieved ahead of their played massively above their level for the Christmas period the season before where they were second for a while. I think they can have the only complaint I think Newcastle can really have is they're missing out on the Stag Do Cup because of United winning the FA Cup. Because I know my housemate who's a Newcastle fan was buzzing about that. But as I said, I got a feeling that they might need to sell an asset or two in case financial fair play comes to kick them because they have spent quite a bit over the last couple of years. And if Tonali doesn't get banned, similar to obviously what's going on with Paqueta, if he can come back into Newcastle at some point, that would be a big shout for them as well. I think Isaac, if he stays injury free, probably finishes Premier League top goal scorer this year. I think he's only like 6 off Haaland, I believe, at the end, but he spent a significant part out of the season out injured. So yes, interesting to see what happens next year. Personally, they've had a lot of Botman being out for a while hurt them, but there we are. I had them down finishing a bit higher, but obviously I can blame injuries on that one.
Yeah, so they're certainly more leaking than last season, but scored an impressive 85 goals. Obviously, you guys have mentioned Alexander Isak, 21 goals, phenomenal. Anthony Gordon as well, 11 goals, 10 assists, fantastic. Deserved to be in the England provisional squad for the Euros this summer. You guys have mentioned injuries, and it's bang on. But also the injury to Nick Pope didn't help things either. I don't know how many games he played, less than 20, I think. So that's a big blow. Obviously, Dubravka is a decent enough number 2, but he's not a number 1, not as good as Nick Pope anyway. So that didn't help things. It might actually help Newcastle. They're not actually in Europe next season because when they did finish 4th, they weren't in Europe at all. So that might help them next season. So yeah, predictions wise, we did okay with Newcastle. So Mark, you thought they finished 6th, so you're 1 out. Dennis, me and you thought they finished 5th, so we were 2 out. So we didn't do too badly in the end with Newcastle. A little bit different view for you, Dennis, for this next team, which is Chelsea, who finished 6th. Thoughts on the West London club, Dennis, this season?
All I'd say is if they played all season like they did the last 3 months, maybe we're talking about them being second, mate.
Second changed his prediction now, Bill. Look, it was third on the original video. By the end of this piece, by the end of it, they won the league.
Yeah, I'm still not sure about it, Mark.
For those watching it, as soon as we finished recording, I went on BBC Sport and I saw that Nkunku was out injured with a significant knee injury, and I was like, well, that's them finishing 5th, isn't it? Typical. I'm like, right, mug. But no, like, obviously, this was also before they'd signed Ollie Palmer, who's been their talisman this year. And considering
Ollie Palmer,
who's
Ollie Palmer?
I've been watching the Wrexham documentary, season 3. So
of course, yeah.
Ollie Palmer, who's their big Cole Palmer. Nah, they're not related. Ollie Palmer's about 3 times his size, mate. Cole Palmer, or as they call him, Cold Palmer, one of the worst nicknames I've ever heard in my life.
Worst celebrations either, but he did it a lot, so we got to see it a lot, didn't we? The season's gone.
As my mate Kurt likes to point him out, referring to him as a penalty merchant as well. He's just an Arsenal fan, dismissing him just as a penalty merchant. But as I said, decision to get rid of Pochettino, I still can't get my head around it. I don't understand what they're thinking. They've just today appointed the West Brom manager Enzo Marzico, Leicester manager. He's had 1 year in management. Yeah, he's studied under Pep and had a good career at Juve, but I think that's jumping in feet first again, which is a mistake they make over and over with managers. And I think they should have stuck with Poch. I thought he had him playing quite well towards the end of the season. So just frankly, the most Chelsea season you could think of, really. Disastrous start playing well. Let's sack the manager before it goes bad.
Absolutely
bizarre.
Yeah, I can't really add too much more to that, mate. Yeah, really inconsistent season. At times they were mid-table, for out. But then, as you said, then it's a really strong finish to the season. Ensured European football next season, albeit I think it's Conference League, but still European football anyway. But yeah, as you said, it's never plain sailing under Todd Bowley's ownership. Pochettino left on mutual consent in May. He's been, as you say, there's been replaced by Enzo Maresca. You know, who took up a Leicester team who were far better, bigger squad, budget, everything, and better players than every other Championship team. So I'm not sure about that, but we'll see how he gets on anyway. But yeah, as you mentioned, Cole Palmer was absolutely amazing. What signing that was. Ended up top scorer in the whole league with 22 goals, and again deservedly in the provisional England squad. So yeah, and then Chelsea finished sixth. Mark.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted that they've got rid of him, Pochettino. I find that a strange one. Although the fact they only gave him a 2-year deal to begin with, would suggest that they wasn't that confident about having him in there in the first place. But League Cup runners up this year, 6th in the league, back into Europe. He's done better than what happened last season, season before. So that was a bizarre decision for me. He's clearly got the best out of Cole Palmer this year, who I was surprised left Man City, especially when they sold Mahrez back in the summer. I thought, well, he's clearly going to get an opportunity now to play. So I was quite surprised at that, but he's been fantastic. They've struggled a little bit with injuries to the two fullbacks in particular, Reece James and Ben Chilwell. But I think, like a few teams, if you look at them across the season, they just struggled to know who their best 11 was every week, or even what their best formation was, especially in those early parts of the season. Even the Chelsea fans, player who's played every game, Conor Gallagher, don't see what he's bringing to the team. But I mean, it looks like he's had a fairly steady season, right? Not quite hit the heights of when he was at Crystal Palace on loan a couple of years ago. But he's had a decent return. Doesn't make any sense why they've let him go, to be honest. It'll be interesting how they go on next year, because at some, they keep going on about this project and we want to do this, but you've sacked Tuchel, you've sacked Potter, you brought Lampard in because you didn't really know what else to do. Obviously, got rid of it was only end of the season contract, but you've got rid of him. Now you've got rid of Pochettino. At some point, I know I've just said they should get rid of Ten Hag at Man United, but at some point you've got to stick with a manager to give him an opportunity to try and enforce his methods onto that playing squad. And as Dennis said, you look at those last sort of 3 or 4 months of the season, it was clearly getting through to the players. They had some really, really strong results at the back end of the season, and you would have thought, just give him another season to see what he can do, but they haven't. And 6th is probably. I felt, yes, the form was very good at the end of the season, but I didn't think they were going to finish that high at the end. I know I had them higher when we did this video before, but looking at the form in general, I thought they'd end up about 9th or 10th, to be fair. But they've done well to turn it around.
Yeah, it was looking that way, mate, wasn't it? So, predictions-wise, a mixed bag for all of us. So, Dennis, you thought they finished 3rd. I got them bang on. I thought they would finish 6th, and that's what happened. And Mark, you thought they finished 5th, so you only one out. So, a mixed bag for the three of us there. So, Tottenham, they finished 5th. It was a much more exciting season for Spurs fans under Ange Postecoglou, with the Australian being in charge. They were unbeaten in their first 10 games, which led to some slightly ridiculous whispers of a title change, which obviously didn't happen. Son was back to his best. He led from the front with 17 goals and 10 assists. Mickey van der Ven and Destiny Udogie were good additions, as well as Vicario in goal. Much more exciting season, as I say, for Tottenham. But a few things that obviously with the Man City home game towards the end of the season, and the wanting Tottenham to lose and all that to stop Arsenal winning the league and all that kind of stuff. So Postecoglou's got to get his head around that with the losing mentality and all that kind of stuff. But it was much more on the front foot, more goals, and completely different to what they had under Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho. Nuno Espirito Santo is more like a Richard Pochettino team from a few years ago, really. So, Mark, your thoughts on Tottenham season?
Obviously, as you mentioned, I think they obviously started off the season really, really well. their style of football was enjoyable to watch, as much as that does pain me to say as a West Ham fan. I did feel that the media loving was a little bit over the top. You know, the pundits during the games about how great Tottenham were, you know, at that point, 10, 15 games, whatever it was. I think we probably started a little bit of a rot with our dominant win at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Tongue very much firmly in cheek when you said that.
For about 10 minutes in the second half, we was all over him.
That game brought a tear to my eye.
It was.
That is the best way to win a football match. The best.
And just as the game against Chelsea, where they had everyone pushed up to the halfway line and all of that, and again, I just felt the loving, all right, different way of trying to win a game of football. That's what he's there for. And on another day, they may, maybe slightly better in front of goal with 9 men. They might have actually got a draw or something, or even a surprise win. But everything when I was going through all the injuries, it mentioned virtually every 20 minutes during the games. Tottenham have got so many injuries, So is everybody else. But, it's just how it is. It's football. It's what happens. Get on with it. But I think at the end of the season, they reverted back to Spurs, effectively. Promised so much, delivered nothing. All this talk about Champions League and all that, again, they blew their chance there. I know that they hate Arsenal, a lot, probably more than what we hate them and they hate us. But I will never, ever understand why you do not want your team to win a game of football. I will never, ever understand it. I agreed totally with the manager and his reaction to it. But what I would say is that I don't really follow Tottenham clearly at all, but it would be interesting to know, you think when Moyes or Big Sam has come out and had a pop at us as supporters over the years, our West Ham Twitter has gone into meltdown and podcast and all that. How dare does he say all that? It would be quite interesting actually to know what the Tottenham fan view of Ange coming out and digging them out and all that, and obviously digging out members of the staff and all that. I don't blame him. I agree with what he was saying, but you're playing a little bit of a dangerous game because a few bad results next season, especially as the run-in wasn't great, if they don't start off very well, I know it sounds crap, I just want every manager sacked, but just how it goes these days in modern football. It's just how it goes, though, isn't it? Now, you lose a few games and suddenly you're the worst manager that's ever been. But because he's come out and attacked the fans and he's, poor, in different results towards the back end of the season, start off poorly next year, he might be looking over his shoulder. But I think I do like him as a manager. I think he's done well, and the transformation again in their playing style, I think, is in general for most part has been really, really good to watch.
Yeah, agreed. And thank God you're not a club owner, Mark. Christ, imagine if you want that. Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, sticking with Ange, I did get a bit sick of the media loving, and they ruined Robbie Williams' Angels for me forever. But what I did love, one thing I did love that Ange Postecoglou did was when some reporters that do the typical thing, the Twitter thing or the FIFA fan thing, and don't even recognise his previous trophies, including the ones he won at Celtic, are going, how would it feel like to win your first trophy? And he just went, I've won one, mate. Got the photos at home. Like, not in an arrogant way, not in an aggressive way, and not in what some managers like to do is politely be like, yeah, one for Tottenham. Yeah, I've won them before, but yeah, one for Tottenham, for example. He just straight up, no nonsense, called it out, but in the most jovial sort of way with a smile on his face. Whereas imagine Mourinho doing that if he was asked that question when he first got to Chelsea, I mean, Spurs, I mean, I had them a little bit lower only because I thought they would miss Harry Kane a lot more than they did. In fact, I almost had them finishing 8th at one point, which I'm kind of glad I didn't because that'd be a -3. But yeah, like, it's what do you expect? I think Ange Postecoglou got a big wake up call to the mentality of Tottenham when they were like as much as you talk about him digging them out, there's videos of fans actually effing and blinding at him, telling him to take their best players off and play the second choice goalkeeper up top because they're so desperate to lose to Man City to stop Arsenal win the league, which I totally get if you're the manager of this club trying to bring them forward, trying to get top 4. But you got fans going, no, I'm happy to finish 5th. I'm happy to finish 5th because you know that he got given the remit of I want us to finish top 4 consistently like we were under Pochettino, first and foremost. That's the remit he's probably been given by Daniel Levy. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it, really. Obviously, I'd much rather Spurs finish 19th or 20th. Between them, Luton and Sheffield United getting relegated would have been my preference. But I do like Ange Postecoglou, and I remember we had a few conversations in Skate Bar, Bill, that I was saying if replacing boys, I'd love to give him a go from Celtic. But Tel Aviv, he's gone over to them lot.
Yeah. So yeah, predictions wise, yeah, I had Tottenham as 8th. So I was 3 out, and you two had them as 7th, so you were 2 out with Tottenham. So let's move into the top 4, the Champions League places. So Aston Villa finished 4th season just gone. Mark, what a season, eh?
Absolutely incredible. You know, there was a time that I didn't think they were actually going to get that last Champions League spot. I think, as we've mentioned on here earlier, I think there's a few teams that maybe almost didn't want to get into Europe with some of the results that they had. But I mean, you know, Ollie Watkins, what a season he's had, what a player he is becoming. You know, most assists in the league this year with 13, 19 goals as well. Incredible stats, you know, and obviously deservedly got his place back in the England squad as well. Great European campaign too. Impressed as well with Leon Bailey. I think he's settled in now, and I think fair to say he's shown why Villa paid the money for him. I thought they were going to miss Tyrone Mings a lot more than what they did. Clearly, you know, finishing 4th, clearly they've done better without him being there. But I was a little bit worried when I saw that he was out. But they've had another really, really good season. You know, decent run as well in the Europa Conference League, which just goes to show anyone else dismissing when we won it that it's not actually that easy. You know, so they've had a very, very good season. You know, again, the transformation, saying before about Palace, you know, the way that Emery has turned that football club around from, you know, the depths of despair, I guess, under Gerrard, you know, 18 months or so ago, to now being in the Champions League is incredible. He's obviously fully committed, signed a new 5-year contract, I think it was a couple of weeks back. Villa, you know, and for them, they're probably quite happy that they're just flying under the radar a little bit. Everyone's been, you know, like us talking about Newcastle, we're going to get in the next teams to maybe try and get in the Champions League. But for them to just be bubbling underneath behind everybody, I think they're probably quite enjoying being that underdog status. And again, another team that whenever you do watch them play, I do love watching their football. They just want to get after teams, attack. Brilliant to see. You know, and they'll be absolutely delighted with that season. That is, you know, brilliant, really great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, I had them finishing 8th, thinking Conference League might knock them a little bit, but they'd still do well. You know, Emery's redeemed very much in the eyes of English football. He left Arsenal with a lot of acrimony in a massive transition period for them. So there's not much more to add more than what Mark's added. Like I said, they've had some real standout performances. Martinez is a fantastic goalkeeper, and Arsenal, even with Raya and Ramsdale, I think they'd be taking Martinez over either of them personally. And there's you know, cameo appearances from players, and they've re-signed. I think they're on the verge of re-signing Ross Barkley as well. Off the back of his Luton season, it'll be interesting to see how that goes on. So I think Villa have long since been regarded as the sleeping giant of English football, with the fact they're in Birmingham, the second city, and they've got that huge, you know, Villa Park's a fantastic stadium. They might be about to sort of relive some of their glory days from the early 80s right now, especially with, I think this is the first time they've been in the Champions League since it was called the Champions League. I could be wrong, but it was European Cup when they won it. They won it in '82. A lot of people don't realise that.
No.
So I think
it didn't start till '92.
yeah. And I think they've got a lot to be excited about personally.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think, what a season they had for Villa and also Unai Emery. They had some brilliant wins against Arsenal and Man City in consecutive games. As you guys have mentioned, Ollie Watkins, what an incredible season. Good returns from Leon Bailey. Douglas Luiz as well. We got 9 goals, 5 assists. And John McGinn led from the front. Real captain season from him. Emi Martinez, as you guys said. And obviously, as you mentioned, Tyrone Mings was injured. And also, Emi Buendia was injured as well for the whole season. So, that's 2 players who would have played a lot last season. They barely played at all. So that's they'll be back, hopefully injury-free next season. So, what a season. I think the challenge for Villa is like Newcastle, they dropped from 4th to 7th. It's going to be hard for them to maintain Champions League places, but the good times are back at Villa Park, that's for certain, with Emery in charge. Predictions wise, we're slightly off with Villa actually. So Mark, Dennis, you guys had Villa as 8th, so you're 4 places out. I had them as 7th, so I was 3 places out. So a few points gained, unfortunately for us there. Let's move up to Liverpool, who finished 3rd. Your favourite team, Dennis?
I've got nothing against them. It's just there's one fan that's an absolute walking embodiment of delusion and anger that I happen to be in a WhatsApp group with.
Hi, mate, if you're watching. Yeah.
Go on then, what are your thoughts on their season? Obviously, it was
well, if it wasn't for the global conspiracy against Liverpool, they would have won the title undefeated, along with the quadruple that they were promised because it was Jurgen Klopp's last season. Every Liverpool fan I knew, I told them to underestimate Atalanta at your peril. They didn't listen. But yeah, they did bet. See, my prediction was purely because of the lack of leadership in the team. They've lost a lot of experienced heads. That didn't really seem to affect them too much, and they finished 3rd, which was, well, I can't actually remember what your 2 predictions were, but I had them down as 6th. And yeah, obviously, I have a rule in football, which is anyone but Spurs. So I actually wanted them to beat Spurs in that game, despite what one person thought. But as I said, the only real flaw in this season was Klopp embarrassing himself when Liverpool had played a PR blinder on the VAR situation against Spurs, where they were robbed. I will give them that. Then demanding that the game is replayed or saying the game should be replayed, and just all that goodwill towards them was like, oh, for God's sake, they're not going to replay the game. And referees no longer need to be seek protection from the Liverpool dugout and technical area because they're now marked as safe with Arnie Slot in charge. So there'll be a lot. Also, I understand that there will be a lot less Kleenex deliveries to Liverpool for all the tears and the press conferences. So win-win.
Go on then, Mark, follow that.
And it also shows that they didn't need Jordan Henderson because obviously he's not the greatest player in the multiverse. Wink and a nod.
Yeah, I think how obviously up until probably that last couple of months of the season, Liverpool were going pretty well. And it was looking like it was going to be a three-horse race for the league, which would have been fantastic for us as neutrals. I think the injury to Salah that he got in the African Cup of Nations just completely ruined their season. He's still done pretty well, 18 goals out of 32 games. But I think that injury clearly had an impact on him. He wasn't quite the same player when he came back. And obviously then there was the sort of falling out between him and Klopp on the sidelines when they played against us. But I think that considering this was meant to be a transitional season for Liverpool, trying to bed in some of the new signings that they made, like Alexis McAllister, finish 3rd is a pretty good achievement. And I think that Klopp you know, it's probably been a little bit unfortunate that he's been in the Premier League at the same time as Man City. If you look at the number of points that they've got in some of the seasons, you know, which normally they would have won the league at, you know, at a canter. I think he's clearly done a very, very good job there with, you know, the league, the Champions League, and the other trophies as well that he's done. And, you know, it'll obviously always be a legend at there, you know, but I do still feel that they are short in a couple of areas. I'm still if Van Dijk doesn't play at centre half, I think there's still a team that you can get you can get after if you're a decent team. And obviously, we know Trent as a right back at times, but you know, for Slot going in there next year, he's got the makings of a very, very good team. He just needs a little bit of fine tuning, a little bit of tweaking here and there, and I think that they'll be good to go again. I think, but yeah, probably disappointing of how it ended, but probably maybe a slightly better season than what they probably would have envisaged, you know, back in August.
Yeah, there was, as you say, Mike, it's a bit of a surprise they were in the title race for quite a long time, considering it's meant to be a transitional season, and they didn't really have a top-class holding midfielder. They had Endo, who played decently, but he's not as good as Declan Rice, for example, or Rodri. He's not in that calibre at all. So, and obviously the other midfielders did pretty well. McAllister was excellent. Szoboszlai and Gravenberch did okay, but and Endo was okay as well. But again, they missed a top class holding midfielder. And yeah, the title race is over after losing to obviously Everton at Goodison Park near the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, third place is a decent achievement for Klopp's last season. So yeah, predictions wise, Dennis, you thought they finished sixth, so you were 3 out. Mark, me and you, we thought Liverpool finished fourth, so we were 1 out. So we did okay with Liverpool. So up to runners up, which was Arsenal. Just came up short again, but they took it to the last day. They had the best defensive record in the league with only 29 goals conceded. Declan Rice, as expected, was an excellent sign. Bukayo Saka was great again, 16 goals, 9 assists. And Kai Havertz defied the critics. Obviously, he was criticised in his first sort of 10 games, probably. Oh, where's he going to play? What a waste of money. Well, I think he's proven it with proving the fee they paid for 13 goals, 7 assists. But yeah, losing to Aston Villa in the run-in at home was absolutely crucial in the end, as well as at the end of December losing to West Ham and Fulham as well, which ultimately really, especially against a team of Man City who were an absolute machine, as we know. So yeah, just came up short again, but yeah, still really good progress for Arsenal under Arteta this season. So Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, just not quite there to compete with the juggernaut that is Man City. Obviously, you know, it goes to show that it wasn't just West Ham fans hyping up Declan Rice, how much Arsenal fans took to him, and a lot of the media suddenly going on about how great he is now. He's playing for a team that isn't in the inferior bottom 14 of the Premier League. And yeah, like there's a player, the name is absolutely, I think it's Sesko, Slovenian striker for RB Leipzig that they're linked with, that they're hoping to be the missing piece. Gabriel Jesus, that is, was nowhere near what he was when he first signed for them at Man City. I'm not sure what's happened to him this season. And it seems like even Saka performed a little bit poorly compared to the high standards he set the season before. So could be argued that if Jesus was hammering him in like he was early doors in 22-23, could it have been a different story? Could there have been a bit more attacking at the Etihad when they went up there and, I'll be honest, played for a 0-0 draw? And if they're turned up against Villa, all if buts and maybes, but just like Liverpool in 18-19, they just missed out. They're against Man City. They are inevitable.
Yeah. Mark?
I think they'll be disappointed. Really disappointed. I mean, I thought they weren't. I didn't think they were going to win the league, my own prediction. But having led the league for so long, they will be massively disappointed. It'll be interesting whether or not if they can, you know, come back next year and be as strong again in terms of being a title challenger. But they've, as Dennis has just said, you know, they had a couple of iffy results. Exactly the same thing happened last year as well. I think they recovered slightly quicker this year than last year. but they'll be bitterly, as I say, bitterly disappointed. I know Havertz, has had a very, very good season if you compare it to his previous efforts. But I don't know. I'm not convinced that he's an out and out centre forward. They desperately need to go and sign a centre forward who is going to go and score them 20, 25 goals a season. Dennis just said they've been linked with someone else, so it'll be interesting if that goes through and whether or not if he's the man that they need. That's what cost them in the end, but I've got to give a mention as well to Ben White as well. Just total shithousery the whole season. Undoing the Tottenham goalie's gloves, treading on people's feet, whatever it was.
Moment of the season, that was.
He just took it to another level every single week. It's probably not a side of the game that we all want to see, particularly, especially if it's against your team as well. It makes you get a bit annoyed with things like that, but you got to give him credit because it worked for him, and no one's picking up on it, so he's going to carry on. But as you mentioned, with their defensive record, it's not just about the pretty football there. They've obviously worked clearly hard on that side, and obviously Saliba, different class at centre half. I'm still not entirely convinced about Raya in goal. I think he's only a very slight upgrade on Ramsdale. I think they may be short there. And as I say, centre forward. But I mean, Declan Rice, as we've all said, been saying for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, he's had a very, very good season. And obviously Odegaard as well. But yeah, I think they'll be disappointed. 2 years in a row, there's not many teams that are strong to come back for a third time. So that'll be interesting next year.
Yeah, big test for them next season. So, predictions-wise, we don't get any points for Arsenal because we all thought they finished second. So, no points to add there. And the same with Man City, who finished top and won the league again. Mark, your thoughts on City season? Obviously, another excellent season.
Yeah, they've played really, really well. I think probably they didn't miss De Bruyne as much as what I thought they were going to do. But I think the positive on that side of things was obviously that Phil Foden, obviously really stepped up and had a fantastic season, 20-odd goals. It makes me laugh when people say about Haaland, he only scored 26 goals. Brian, I mean, what a problem to have, right?
No, 27.
Sorry, 27. Oh, well, there you go. So, I mean, only 27. So, I mean, what a problem to have, right? Quite impressed with Doku when he came in first season. Maybe a slightly different player. If you think how Pep likes to control the game, with his bursts of pace, and I'm not sure he's the greatest technically in terms of his passing ability. I mean, he just wants to get the ball and just dribble and run at players, but. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but his general sort of style of play. Rodri superb, and even talking about Tottenham before with injuries, or even Arsenal. With I think Jesus was injured for periods of time. Man City, it doesn't matter. I know they spent a lot of money and whatever else on players, but they just can keep going every week. It doesn't matter if they've got an injury. It's all right. We'll bring in. Stones is out. We'll bring in Ake. But it's not going to change the way that we play. It's not going to affect us. Fantastic season. I guess the relief is that Guardiola's hinting that next season's going to be his last one. That'll be interesting if he does go through with that. I think it'll be a shame for the English game, but I think for the him going, because he's obviously raised the standard incredibly high. And obviously I think that's noted now in the number of managers that have worked under him that's starting to get their own jobs. But they've been incredible again, and yeah, thoroughly deserve to win the league. Once they get on a run, that's it. There's no stopping them. So confident.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yes, there's 4 consecutive titles for Man City. The first time in English football history, the entire over 100 years history. Absolutely incredible, obviously, achievement. I mean, despite the 115 charges, it's still an amazing achievement with that team. They lost against Villa in early December and then went unbeaten for the entire rest of the season. So, yeah, an absolute juggernaut. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Mark, Phil Foden, breakout season, really. 19 goals, 8 assists. And, yeah, even the backup players who might play the odd game, they still make a difference. Like Ortega against Spurs, basically won them the title with that save from Son.
That was incredible.
Unbelievable save. So, yeah, and Garvadell, obviously cost a lot of money, but he popped up, even though he's a defender, popped up some crucial goals from a inverted left back position. So, yeah, Rodri, outstanding again. Kyle Walker, very good, keeps going. Yeah, De Bruyne made such a difference when he was returned, and, not as good as last season, but Erling Haaland is a freak, isn't he, in front of the goal? So with 27 goals, so yeah, they won the league again. So Dennis,
I can't really add anything more other than 115 charges. There's also the slight thing I'm going to say about Haaland where it makes it sound even more blinking ridiculous. People go, "Oh, he didn't have that good a season." In all competitions, he scored a paltry 38 from 44 games.
Oh, poor.
Sell him. Rubbish.
Yeah, he did 52 and 53 last season. Great. Like, admittedly, it is by fraction his worst season in a while, considering in the 1920 season, he scored 28 goals in 22 games in the first half, and then 16 and 18 in the second half. 41 in 41 the year after that. 29 in 30 year after that. 52 and 53 last season, and this season, 38 and 44. By his standards, that is a waste man, like compared to the others, where he's virtually had a goal a game, if not more. But yeah, it's like stay in your lane. A lot of the people said Haaland's been terrible seem to think that Firmino is one of the best strikers the Premier League's ever had. Wink and a nod. But yeah, that's all I have to add is that little stat on Haaland being nowhere near as bad as people are making out, and the 115 charges.
Right, what a way to end. So yeah, we don't lose any points because all of us predicted City would actually win the league, so no points there. Right, so that's reacting to obviously our predictions. So the moment we've all been waiting for is who won the predictions competition this season. So we all did really well, lads. So we all scored under 50, which according to Spencer FC, Spencer Owen, if you get under 50, you've done really well. So we've all done really well. And there was only 2 points that separated the 3 of us. So wow. So it was close as the title race this season. So in third place, it's like come down with me. In third place with 46 is you, Mark.
Yes.
So you finished in third. So it's just down to me and you, Dennis, for the winner. Yeah. And the twist is we're joint winners. We're joint winners. We share the golden boot because we both got 44 points.
Damn it! Damn it, Chelsea! Damn it, Liverpool! Damn it, Wolves! Why can't you finish one place lower or higher?
Like with the elections recently, and obviously the general election coming up, I checked about 3 or 4 times just to check we're actually on the same score. I mean, but yeah, both were 44. So, but all 3 of us, what an effort to get under 50 is a really good effort.
Because of Wolves and Chelsea, I thought I was going to finish rock bottom, and Liverpool, both of them are like 3 and a 4 swing.
But there weren't too many. The only how that we all had was Burnley, and apart from that, we all had like
Brentford.
Ones and two. Yeah, Brentford was 6, but apart from that, we had 1s and 2s, the odd 4, 5. But yeah, as long as you don't have like 10, 11 plus or whatever, like when Leicester won the league, for example, like Leicester something like that, then yeah, you're good. But yeah, we all did really well. So yeah, Dennis, we're joint winners with 44.
Happy days. Well done, lads.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, let's see how we get on with next season. if we get under 50 again, all 3 of us, that'd be some achievement. What better than the City 4 leagues in a row? All right. Well, before you know, we'll be doing it's only start of June, but with the some with the Euros and all that. Before you know it, we're doing with our predictions for next season. Before you know it. All right. Well, that was a real treat, lads. So, Dennis, Mark, thanks a lot, lads, for joining. And we'll see you for some Euros coverage in the summer, and also we'll be doing our predictions for next season in August sometime.
Sounds
brilliant. Good. Love it. Thanks for having us back on, and see you all soon.
No worries. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe to Gadget Football if you're new, and then let us know how you got on with your predictions in the comments below. In the meantime, we'll see you soon. All the best. Take care.